where needed, and then I will try and log in.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I think I will go ahead and call the September 4th, 2025 Turnagain Community Council Zoom meeting to order. We have a packed agenda, and so even though some people tend to join us after the 6:30 start time, I felt like, we just need to do this now. So let's see. So far for introductions, I usually introduce members, officers and members, excuse me, board members. And I see that Lamar, where did you go, Lamar? I know you're here. There you are. Lamar is an board member at large. So thank you, Lamar. And I'm not seeing any other board members yet.
Karen,
So
Karen's here.
Oh, Karen. Oh, Karen, you're with us now. Oh, and Karen, the vice president of Turnagain Community Council.
Good.
And so as the others join in, we'll just go ahead and introduce them as well. But I need a motion to approve the agenda for this evening, and I will need 3 amendments to add 3 more items on this packed agenda. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to spend a lot of time on any of them, but technically we need to get them on the agenda. So if I could have someone move to approve adding the Anchorage Recreation Trails Plan under board report, I would appreciate it.
I'm waiting for Sandy to do it.
Karen, our VP, is gonna help us out here.
All right.
You so move?
I do.
Okay. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Lamar. Does anybody object to adding the Anchorage Recreation Trails Plan to the board report? Okay, no objection. Thank you. The second one is to add a Fish Creek Trail connection update to the TCC Land Use Committee report.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, John.
Second.
Dan, second. Does anybody have any objection to adding that item to the agenda? Okay. And the third one is to add the Alaska Long Range Transportation Plan to the board report.
I so move.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Can I have a second?
I'll second Sandy.
Okay, great. Is there any objection? Okay, those are now added, and I'll just fit them in where they look like they might want to fit in. Okay, so our secretary, Chris Habich, provided the draft June 5th, 2025 minutes. We did not meet in July or August. So if I could please get a motion to approve those minutes, I would appreciate it. Anybody?
So moved.
John, thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Dan? Okay. Is there any objection to approving the minutes from June 5th? Then we always put a caveat if there's, just minor things that may have need clarification or anything like that, but we as a board can go ahead and make those amendments if they're minor. So is there any objection to approving the June 5th minutes?
No.
No objection. Okay, great. So far, so good on this agenda. All right. And welcome everybody as you're attending. Thank you, Matt Clayman, for jumping in and joining us. So oh, is Kathleen here? Have you, Kathleen McCoy, is she with us yet? She's our treasurer.
No, she wasn't gonna be able to come to the meeting till 8 o'clock.
Oh, that's right. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, I will go ahead and give the treasurer's report. So we do this on a quarterly basis, and so our checking account balance is $3,040.05. Our savings account balance is $219.21. The two actions that were taken with our account this summer was on May 30th when Kathleen, our treasurer, transferred $1,400 from our savings account to our checking account. And that action, along with the next action, allows us to avoid the 5-month fee that we need to have a $2,500 minimum in your checking account, and we did not. So the
$5
second
a
was
month. $5 a month. Sorry to
I'm
correct
sorry,
you.
Dan.
$5 a month, correct? Fee?
$5. Sorry, what did I say? $5,000? No, just $5.
GCC meetings underway.
And so also on June 23rd, the Gleasons, my husband Dan and myself donated $1,000 to FCC and deposited that in the account, which that reflects that $3,040.05. And
To Turnagain Community Council, not
yes,
FCC.
to Turnagain Community Council. So that is our treasurer's report. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Thank you for that, Kathy and Dan.
Oh, thank you. It's our pleasure. It just seems so silly to have to pay that $5 fee. And since we don't sell cookies or anything as fundraisers, you know, we got to do something to keep that balance. Okay. Moving on. Does anybody have any very brief announcements to share? No announcements? Okay. That'll help out. Oh, John, you have an announcement?
Barney does.
Oh, Marnie.
Just a quick word on Forest Park Drive, or maybe the last, I hope. But the community told me today that it's essentially a complete deal. So you guys all did the heavy lift, but we've got a few touch-ups according to the city, and a little drainage problem with one of our neighbors' driveways. But I'm happy to report there are a lot of bicycles and walkers enjoying our beautiful road. So we've got one.
Wow.
In the bank here, and I don't think Kathleen is on, but part of this was a greenway to connect to our bike trail. So I'd like to take that up, maybe with the board, some ideas to improve that trail around the lagoon, make it a little safer. So I'll get back to you on all that.
Okay, that's something we can deal with. That. Yeah, and thank you, Marnie. I did attend a quarterly Anchorage Trails meeting that I'm just a part of for quite some time, and I did bring up the fact that because one of the things they were talking about was the neighborhood greenway project and how successful it's been. And so I did bring up specifically Forest Park Drive and our Safe Routes to School initiative that we started 10 plus years ago. And that designation really doved in with what
Kathy,
we've working on.
This is Pat
Yeah.
Redmond.
Yes.
And Eric Broody was trying to get your attention, I think. Did they have an
excuse me.
announcement?
Okay, so is this a different announcement?
Yes.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
So I'm not actually Eric Broody. I just had to use my dad's computer for this.
Okay, what's your name?
I'm Ivan Broody.
Ivan Brody, okay.
Yeah, and I'm with West Anchorage High School's Save Our Parks Club. And I'm
Wow.
not sure that I'm not sure if you touched on this or not or already, but we were just gonna talk about our Romig ski hill, the hill by West, and kind of our plans for that.
Well, we certainly are aware of it and we appreciate that. Because I didn't ever get connect with somebody so that I could put it on the agenda.
Mhm.
And we have such a packed agenda that the board decided that we would form an ad hoc committee with the board as the base and anybody else that wants to jump on. And then we can meet with the supporters of the project sometime later this, whenever it's good for everybody in a week or whenever, so that we can talk about the Romig ski slope. Because we've got some of the highly time sensitive things that we need to deal with tonight.
Okay.
So I really appreciate you, Ivan, for attending our meeting.
Thank
And
you.
so if somebody would like to make a motion to create that board-based ad hoc committee, I would entertain it.
This is Pat. I so move.
I second. Dan
Dan
Gleason.
Is there any discussion? And if there's anybody that would like to serve on that ad hoc committee on behalf of the council?
I'll be willing to. Mark Larson.
Oh, sorry. Mark Larson?
Mark Larson.
Okay.
Correct.
And can you please provide your contact information on the chat so that we've got that?
I sure will, Kathy.
Thank you.
And can you put Marnie Isaacs on that
Yes.
ad hoc committee as well? Thank you.
And
Anybody
Kathy, one
else?
suggestion, maybe Ivan can put his contact information on the chat
Yes,
too, so we know how to get
yes,
a hold of
Ivan.
you.
So we know how to get a hold of you because we
Okay.
certainly want your involvement.
This is Pat. I would like to, I would be glad to join in on that too.
I think that's a great idea. Okay. So thank you for bringing that up. That was something that if somebody brought up the ski hill, then that's how we were going to deal with it because we've got such a packed agenda this evening. So anybody else? Last call?
Kathy, a really brief, if I may.
Very brief.
Very brief, just a recap on the Earthquake Park trail work. We received a grant from the Anchorage Park Foundation after we got the blessing from the TCC. We've completed the work. We installed 6 bridges. Youth Employment in Parks put in 20 yards of gravel. Throughout there is passable and safe and able to walk on through the muck. So just letting you know.
Wow. So you're part of that effort.
And
Okay.
it was Chris Sabisht and Mark Dalton and I worked together. So
Okay. Well, I knew that happened this summer, but I didn't know any details. So that's amazing. So what part of the park is that kind of the work that happened?
it goes right through the heart of the park. It's the main corridor that branches off the curve right after you come off the Earthquake Park overlook. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, go
Have
check
to
it
check
out.
it out.
It's
Yeah.
great.
And
Thank
thank you for your work. And thanks to the park department and the Yep volunteers. That's youth employment program. So okay, great. Anything else before we move on out of announcements? Okay. What's new in Turnagain? We'll take 5 minutes if anybody wants to share anything that's really exciting going on in our neighborhood. You want to share? I don't know how much stuff happened over the summer, but yeah. Amanda.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. I'm with my earbuds, but just let me know if it's not working. I am this year the art teacher over at Turnagain Elementary, and it has just been such a delight to be there. Just amazing staff, amazing principal. They are open to having volunteers this year, so I just want to put that shout out there. If you would just really want to be part of those kids learning and growing, please fill out the volunteer application that ESD has and contact the school. Some students came over and did this amazing chalk art. I think they were college students, either high school or college students, and did amazing chalk art outside the front of the school. And that's just one little way of like just how community support is really making that school a great place. We have Lakehood kiddos that are transitioning, you know, to being part of Turnagain. So we have a new student body that is forming, and but so far things are going great for that. But it really does take, you know, the whole community being behind it to make it successful and help Turnagain be successful long term.
Wow, thank you, Amanda. That's excellent. That's right. Those Lakehood students are having to transition. How many of those students did Turnagain Elementary get?
So it's hard. It's about, from what I can see anecdotally, maybe about a third in each class is from those students, even less. It's great for me because, you know, I say, hey, I'm in the same boat. I'm new at this school too. You know, we're all in this together. But yeah, I want to say there's about maybe 290 students total at that school. You know, Russian immersion, that's always just we always need to get the word out about that and have that be a strong anchor at the school. So, you know, families that want to make immersion part of their life, just make sure to keep, you know, tell people about that. But yeah, it's some students decided to stay at Lakehood and be within Native Charter School. But as far as how Turnagain is fitting that in, it's just been really good to see.
Wow, that's great. We used to have neighbors that lived right next door to us. One of their daughters was in the Turnagain Elementary Russian immersion program. So kind of know a little bit about that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, anybody else want to share anything? Sandy?
You're mute.
Sandy, you're muted.
Got it.
So,
Thank
go.
you. Just a quick comment. Something I've been working on as a committee of one is to encourage the Parks Department to swap out all the garbage cans on the coastal trail and make them all bear-proof garbage cans. And I've done an inventory of that through a couple bicycle rides from mile 0 all the way to Kincaid. We're talking about 7 garbage cans. So it's not a big lift to swap out 7 garbage cans and install 7 bear-proof cans. Somewhere down the road, I'll come back and ask to be on the agenda and possibly a resolution supporting doing that. This would be something that could, you know, hopefully could happen like next summer. Pretty low key, pretty simple. We're only 7 garbage cans away from them all being bear proof. So just a mention for the future.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. Great idea. Great idea. The one at Linary Park, lower level there by the Memorial Garden, we saw that one has been switched out. But I don't know which one still might be.
No, I have them all written down and marked by location, and
Okay.
like I say, I'll come back in the future, talk about it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Sandy. Anybody else? Kind of have to move on. So thank you, everybody, for what you've been doing all summer long. Okay, so now we're into reports, and this is a little bit different than our usual agenda schedule. We usually start with board report next, but because of just everything that's packed in here, we put board report last, and so everything else is bumped up. So do we have a mayor's representative? Okay, do we have an assembly report? Now I know Anna is planning to come. Anna, are you here yet?
Yeah, she's here.
Yes, I am.
Oh, sorry, I'm having trouble. Oh yeah, we're in 1/1 and 1/2. I'm not shifting, so thank you. Yes, welcome, Anna.
Yeah, hello. And I'll also say I'm also bringing a report on behalf of my colleague Cameron Presverdia. He was planning to come tonight, but had messaged that he had a family issue come up. So so he did helpfully provide some notes. So I'm going to read from his notes and give him credit for preparing those. And then I have just a couple other updates. And then also happy to take questions. I'll keep it brief. So we'll touch on some topics that I know have been hot topics over the summer. One is on homelessness, so some updates on the shelter system. And I know you've probably seen some updates on that recently, but here's where we are right now. We are transitioning to a year-round shelter system, so moving away from basically only opening cold weather shelter in the winter. Obviously, you know, that's helpful in the winter for folks who need to stay safe, but it creates a lot of kind of chaos and rough transitions for folks when they have to leave. So it's really, we've already been hearing reports that having that open for a longer period of time is helpful for the clients. It gets folks moving out of shelter and just less disruptive. So where we are is the 56th Avenue shelter, the congregate shelter that's down by the transfer station or the transfer center in Midtown will keep operating. So it will have 100 beds, so a little bit less than it had before. There's a planned remodel because that building does need a fair amount of work. It's the old office building for solid waste services. And so they had to replace the roof, and there's been some other issues there recently, but getting that remodeled, and then there will be enhanced case management and supportive services. A new shelter that's opening that you might have seen in the news is called Linda's Place. It's formerly Fantasies on Fifth, not the falling down brown building, but the other one that looks nicer on Fifth over across from Merrill Field. So that property is actually in really good shape for what it was. And it also recently opened up with 100 beds, similar support services to what's at Congregate Shelter. And then in the winter, they are planning on potential surge capacity, meaning that it could go up to 200 beds if it gets really cold, you know, as we know it does, but really wanting to make sure that we're managing those shelters well. So they've just moved in this week, I believe. And then additionally, closer to home, for you all is the Alex Hotel that will also continue to provide 100 non-congregate beds. So meaning that folks have a room, their own room, they can lock the door there and just kind of stabilize more. So they'll be focusing on getting folks into housing and treatment. And actually, I attended the Spenard meeting last night, Spenard Community Council, and the shelter manager was there. So if folks do have questions or want to speak to her, I can get her contact info. She was very responsive. And she did also note that about 40% of the folks in the Alex are actually working, and a lot of them are working in Spenard. So, so there's already, folks who are kind of more stable there and able to start working on getting their life together. So that comprehensive approach is going to be more stable with more consistent staffing and better services. That's what we're hoping. In terms of treatment capacity, that's a related topic. We know that treatment beds have been scarce in Anchorage, but that is changing. So there's going to be a new treatment facility, and these aren't all municipally run. They're just kind of what's out in the community, because that's usually healthcare providers are doing that. So there's a treatment facility in East Anchorage. Another one's going to open downtown. We're working on the building that's known as the former Golden Lion Hotel in Midtown. That's currently housing, but there's a move to make that into an outpatient treatment center, as well as keeping some housing there for folks who are, so not residential treatment, not 24/7, but still be able to have housing there. And then there's going to be some treatment at the Small Homes Project, the Tiny Homes Project over on the east side that you might have heard about. The Salvation Army also has open treatment beds. They've been providing, of course, the Clitheroe Center that used to be located out at Point Warrenzoff. So they're still operating I think in Midtown is where their location is now. So really focusing on getting folks into treatment. Of course, we still know that's a huge need. Mental health is a huge need across really across the country, but really helping folks who need that getting there. A couple other updates: public safety and crisis response. You all certainly heard about the Chelsea Inn, and I know folks in Spenard were very relieved to see that closed. I think we all are. And Chief Case gave a more detailed update on that, but here's the short version. Recently, the property was raided, and not just by APD, but the FBI. So there's a lot of federal involvement. They seized a whole bunch of drugs and guns and other items right now. And this reminded me, if you remember, the Paradise Inn from a few years ago. It's not the same situation, but sounds kind of similar, also in Spenard. So right now the building has been boarded up. It's under the control of the U.S. Marshals for about a year. So we don't know exactly what will happen with that building. But right now there is no one in it, and there will be continued kind of monitoring and making sure folks don't get back in there. But we also know there's been spillover impacts there. If you've driven along Spenard Road, we know it attracted a lot of folks who unfortunately are suffering from addiction. So there's a lot of proactive efforts to not only monitor for safety there, but try to engage with the folks who were, I guess, clients of the Chelsea and trying to get them into treatment or just get them into a better situation. So that's still going to take some time. That was real disruptive when that happened, but hopefully better than it's been. I'll also just note that APD is forming a new impact team. So that's similar to the CAP team, the Community Action Policing team. And it's essentially those officers that have been doing that, but also now a team of what's called community service officers. So they aren't sworn officers, but they are going to be trained and really working alongside sworn officers to do more kind of day-to-day work, interfacing with neighbors, businesses, not so much doing the arresting, but really doing more day-to-day just contact and trying to have more of a presence out there on the street from APD. So they've been working on this program. It's going really well. They have some brand new CSOs is what they're called, as well as getting our academies, the sworn officers continue to be staffed up. So we've got a full academy going through this time. So we're really, really seeing some positive rebuilding at the police department. And the impact team, it'll roll out very soon. But when it does, you will probably get a contact because each community council will have a dedicated officer who is your point of contact with APD, similar to how they changed the patrol beats to match community council boundaries. So again, just another way to really make sure that APD is out in the community. And then, of course, we have our crisis response system in general, mobile intervention team at APD, the mobile crisis team at AFD, the fire department, the HOPE team also with APD. And then, of course, just making sure there's a lot more coordination and better response and making sure that we have the right response, whether it needs to be somebody with a gun if there's a safety issue or if it's a medical issue, we'll send our mobile crisis team with the fire department. So really getting that worked online. I will share the budget process timeline. So we're early in that process now, but it officially kicked off on last Friday, actually, with the publishing of what's called the 120-day memo. So that is the preliminary statement from the mayor's office on revenue trends. Are we getting more or less funding than we think we're going to? Big picture trends like that, as well as really looking ahead to the mayor's budget priorities for 2026. So that's the official kind of kickoff. And then in October, the assembly will be having work sessions and getting a briefing on the formal budget. We'll receive the budget around October 1st. So us and the public will be able to see that. And then we'll move through our work sessions. We'll have public hearings late October, early November. And of course, if you have priorities, this is always a great time to get in assembly folks' ear or get in mayor's ear to really say what's important to you. I do anticipate it'll be, a lean budget year, meaning that a lot of our federal money that supported things like shelter in the past is, we spent that money. It was COVID relief money. We've used pretty much the last little pieces of it. And so we're really back to our core operating budget. So I don't anticipate major cuts, hopefully, to services, but really just looking at, the ongoing structural challenge that I've brought before, which is that we have a lot more need, whether it's repairing things or just the services that we need, than we have capacity to budget for. And we know that's always a challenge. So anyway, so I'll share more about the budget process later in the fall. And lastly, and then I'll wrap up and just see if there's questions. You may have heard about what I'm calling unification. So the unification of the city and the borough, which happened in September 1975. So we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the creation of the municipality as a local government. And we're having a lot of great programming, not just with the muni, but with other partners, to really not only look back and say kind of how things have changed, what made us do that, what made us combine the city and the borough, and understanding that history, but also using it as a way to think about kind of what is our future. Given how much has changed in the last 50 years, we know the city continues to change and our needs continue to change. So how can we look forward to that? So if you want to go, I'll put it in the chat, but there's a website, muni.org/50. So numbers 50. We've got a lot of great historical information. Just today, there was a letter to the editor published in the ADN from the actually 3 surviving members of the Charter Commission, who are Only one of them lives in Anchorage still. Is Jane Anvik, Lisa Parker down in Soldotna, and then Joe Josephson, who is out of state, but his son Andy Josephson is in the legislature. Anyway, they wrote kind of a look back on their reflection on the last 50 years. So check that out. I think it'll be in the Sunday paper, but it's online already. I'll put a link to that as well. And last thing I'll say, tomorrow is the last of what the Parks Department has been hosting as the night market in Town Square Park downtown, but we've extended that 1 week to tomorrow, Friday, September 5th. And it's also going to be a big kickoff celebration for the 50th. So we'll have food, there'll be food trucks, we'll have live music, we'll have some speakers. We'll really talk a little bit about, what it means to be the Muni 50th. And it should just be a good time. So I encourage everybody to come downtown. It's free, bring your family. And really enjoy that. Looks like it'll be better weather than it is today. So with that, I know that's a lot of information, but I'll see if there's questions.
Wow, okay. Who wants to ask questions of Anna? And since I got to go back and forth here, Amanda, yes.
Okay, thank you for all that. And yeah, and that's a lot. So just thanks for being responsive, just with the assembly and the mayor working together to be responsive to, just what our community council concerns have been about the homelessness. I'm really encouraged by that. I still have questions, and it's really primarily about the resources devoted to the, solving the core of the problem, not just putting the emergency responses that we have to have, but the kind of resources. So that's my question. I drive through Spenard and Wisconsin intersection, several times a day. And there's just this kind of dark feeling through that intersection. It is so close now to where the Native Cultural Charter is now. There's lots of kids going through that intersection. And so I think what really struck me about the Chelsea raid is that I realized that I've been driving by these places where there's a lot of dark things happening, day after day, and I don't necessarily see what's going on driving so fast. But anyone who's on the street, any kids, any people who are needing use of bus services, all of that, and anybody who needs to stop at the gas station, the tourists, they are really picking up that. And I know it does radiate out. So yeah, do you have any insight into what conversations are happening for getting at the core of the issue of why the drug addiction is happening and the alcohol addiction?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know talking with folks in Spenard too, the history of Spenard has had good days and bad days, right? So we know this is not a new thing, but it's certainly been worse lately. I know the root causes is a big topic of discussion, and it's complex because a lot of folks are homeless and maybe end up in drug addiction as well, for economic reasons. They lose their housing and then they kind of spiral from there. A lot of folks have unresolved trauma. There's a lot of different reasons for that. And so I think it seems like the community as a whole is coming to more understanding of that, but it's also, of course, challenging because there's free will, right? We can't force people into treatment. It can take time. It can take multiple outreach to get folks to get into that. So I think some of the places that we have focused, of course, is housing. We know to the extent that the cost of housing and the availability of housing is a big driver of homelessness, not the only one, obviously. That's one place to focus. And then for folks who do need that support, we know there's still not enough treatment in the state. And we know that really focusing upstream in the first years of a kid's life is a way to reduce their likelihood that they will end up in jail or that they will end up on the street or that they will have these other issues. And so that's really the thought behind a lot of the alcohol tax investments that we've made in early childhood. And now also voters approved a few years ago using our marijuana tax for pre-K, and childcare. So we're starting to get some of that money out in the community. So, but I think it's a bigger discussion. It's a statewide discussion. I know certainly we've had that discussion with legislators and others. We know other communities are facing this issue. We know that there's a lot of complex interplay between urban and rural. So I would say certainly there's a lot of work on that, and it's hard to know kind of how the city on our own could solve that, right? But I think we're working toward that. We're trying to do our part and also really trying to elevate this issue to the other entities who can do something about it. So yeah, certainly a big big interest of
Yeah.
all of us to stop it from happening.
Okay.
Right, and I guess just what
Mhm.
us citizens would be interested is actual data. Does Housing First actually work to solve the root programs, and all those things? Does it really help, or are we actually seeing the problem increase? That's what I would be interested in. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. And unfortunately, because, okay. Marnie, is that you?
Yeah, back to the budget for a second for you and Anna. Can you remind us again when the CIP process begins for priorities from the community councils?
Yeah, just briefly, I know for the this year that's already closed, but the CIP is what feeds into what goes on our bonds essentially, and also what we ask from the state and the federal government. So that process is closed for this year. I know we've talked about changing the timing of it so that it can happen earlier in the process and maybe inform our budget the same year. But so I would say, if you guys have things that are already on your priority list, certainly remind us of those, and then we're going to be looking at bonds. But the bonds aren't finalized until January. So I think if at all possible, we can take action now, put it in the budget. But then really at the end of the day, it's decided in the last meeting in January for the April ballot.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, the Muni is shifting the timing of wanting to have input from community councils on the list. So used to be in like March, and then we'd have till May or so to do that. And now they're going to shift. But since we just did that, I'm not sure. I think it must kick in next year when they start engaging with councils again, and that CIP process will start, because it will change, or that they're planning to change that, just to give councils more time to come up with their list. So I know Matt Clayman is here, our senator, representing our area. Matt, would you like to give a legislation report? Welcome.
Happy September, and welcome back from no meetings in the summer. Of course, in the legislature, our summer highlight was we did have a special session, which didn't last very long. As you all know, under the Article 2, Section 16 of the Constitution, if the special session is called, then we need to meet in joint session and take up override of any bills that were vetoed or budget items that were vetoed. And there were some other items on the special session agenda that hadn't built broad support within the legislature. And so on the first day we met in joint session, and we voted to override the governor's vetoes on education funding in 2 different areas. And then that concluded the special session, and so those funding pieces are back in place despite the governor's vetoes. And the governor, I think, just recently announced that he wasn't going to call us back into special session. So that's really I would say the highlight of the legislative work this summer was overriding those vetoes and keeping the strong support that we're hearing from the community for investing in our public schools. And glad the kids are back in school, and it sounds like Anchorage particularly is not looking at the layoffs that they were looking at had we not overridden those vetoes. So that's the main update I've got. We've got we'll be picking up pace looking ahead to the session in January, but mostly here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Does anybody have a quick question for Matt? And let me.
Yes, I do. Sorry, turning my camera on. I'm Lynn. Hi.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, we just were talking about homelessness, and it really strikes me that the homelessness that we experience in Anchorage is really a statewide problem that kind of lands and gets dumped on Anchorage, and then the Muni is sort of held responsible for dealing with it. I'm wondering, from the statewide perspective, are there any efforts statewide to help with this issue, to help with housing and all the other things that we discussed earlier?
There's very definitely an awareness on a statewide level and an awareness in the legislature. One of the challenges that we have in the legislature from a standpoint of legislation and passing new laws is that a law that would work well and be well tailored to Anchorage might not be very well suited to Uktiavik or Bethel. And so in terms of legislation that we pass, we tend to leave more discretion to the communities to figure that out. But we also recognize that there's state funds, and so there's a real interest in trying to get state funds to programs that are working. And so we did have, in this year's budget, we did have some funding that was going to help communities with homelessness issues. Of course, part of the challenge on the statewide budget is that we don't have as much money as we did several years ago. So there were a number of programs, not just in homelessness, but in other areas that there was push for those, and we couldn't get funding for them. But there's definitely an awareness, and certainly an awareness that because of the greater range of services that are available in Anchorage, that Anchorage tends to attract folks that might come to Anchorage from other parts of the state. And so Anchorage has challenges that other parts don't have. So there's definitely an awareness, and we're working on one of the specific areas that I think does have some impact. Is we've had a lot of success passing legislation for crisis intervention and crisis residential facilities, and that was something that was lacking until a few years ago. The first part of that we passed in 2020, in that shortened session because of COVID. We actually got the legislation that allowed crisis intervention centers to get started. We passed in that legislative session on an incredibly short timeline. And now we're starting to get crisis intervention centers built in different parts. There's one going on on the Native Medical Center campus, and so that'll be a fairly significant crisis intervention center. Providence has plans to build one, but they've been stalled on construction because of funding issues. But those are areas that will have benefits. They're not specific. They weren't passed directly for homelessness, but that's part of that whole picture.
Okay, great. Anybody else have a quick question for Matt? I don't see any hands. Okay, thanks so much, Matt. I really appreciate it. And now you can just kick back until January, right? Okay.
I will look forward to seeing you all in October.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Have a great September.
Yeah, you too. So is there anybody from the school board? Yes, I see Kelly. Yeah, Kelly, hi. Welcome.
Hello, Turnagain. This is Kelly Lessons, and I will be your new board liaison for the forthcoming year. Just a really brief, high-level, I guess, introduction. There are 7 board members, and we serve the municipality as a whole. And so we've divided for years and years the entire municipality more or less along the lines of our 8 comprehensive high schools. Chugiak and Eagle River get sort of pushed together. And so being a community council liaison means I'm paying attention this year to the community councils that are aligned with the elementary and middle schools feeding into West High School. So I have the West area. So anyways, it's a pleasure to be here, and speaking personally, because I happen to live across town, it is really fantastic that I can connect on Zoom. So thank you for using technology. Really briefly, again, at a high level, board meetings are the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of each month, unless there's like a holiday. We have 3 board committee meetings on the last Thursday of each month, generally, unless there's a need to reschedule. And back to school season is in full swing. So school started about 3 weeks ago. And it's really an exciting time for our students, for our staff, for families. So if you know somebody connected in the system, give them a high five and a hug. There are definitely wonderful sports and activities going on. And because this is part of that West feeder system, if y'all want to go have a really great night, I strongly urge you to buy your tickets now for West High School's production of Ride the Cyclone, which is their fall theater production. I saw Spinard Builder Supply has their sign up advertising the theater production. It starts in 3 weeks, and you can find those tickets online. I think you can probably buy them there that weekend, each of those nights. But that's a fun community thing that folks can participate in. I really appreciated Amanda's plug for the need for volunteers in our schools. I put the link for that in the chat. Just know that if you have any kind of a superhero, including a great smile and hugs and high fives, you can be helpful in all kinds of ways, helping teachers, helping students, with individual reading time, helping, be a crosswalk guard. There's just so many needs that community members are able to fill. So there is a website that's like asdk12.org/volunteer, and it'll tell you what you need to do to get through that volunteer system. I don't know how much time I have, so tell me if
Probably to wrap it up.
Okay.
Because you have such a full agenda.
Yep. Okay, I think that just really briefly, tomorrow I'm aware that state proficiency data from the spring 2025 assessments are going to be released. So I'm sure there's going to be conversation about that. I haven't seen them. I don't have a comment on them at this point. And then just as we move forward, Anna was talking about, budgeting from the assembly perspective. Again, the Anchorage School Board has to pass a balanced budget in February of each year. So we're going to be backwards planning from February of 2026. We'll start those budgeting conversations this fall. We're really focusing on aligning our resources with our adopted board goals for reading, math, and graduation rates. So I'll pause there if there are any questions, and happy to go into anything more in depth, maybe at a future meeting.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Any quick questions for Kelly? And welcome to Turnagain's meetings this season.
And I'll put my contact info in the chat as well.
Okay, great. I don't see any hands raised. Oh, Karen?
Nope, just waving hi at Kelly.
Okay, we
Great.
can all wave hi to you, Kelly. Okay, thanks so much, Kelly. We appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Have a good night. Bye.
You too. Okay, so we will dovetail now into airport report, and I think I saw Lex is part of the Zoom audience here, so I will turn that over to you right now.
Thank you, Kathy. So my name is Lex Yelverton. I'm the communications and PR specialist for the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. And I'm just here to share some of our September updates with all of you guys. We have a lot of stuff that's coming up. So the biggest thing so far is Aviation Day. So this is something that Alaska Airlines has done in various places like Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. And it's actually a big day that they hold, and it's meant for youth ages like 11 to 20. And then they can come to, their warehouse, wherever their area of operations is, and kind of see what it's like in aviation careers. And so we're really excited. This is the first time they'll be doing it in Anchorage, and it will be on ANC property. It'll be in their warehouse. And so it's a good way, if you know any youth who are really interested in aviation and learning, the industry, I think it would be a great thing to invite, kids that you might know. I know so far they've invited school partners in Anchorage and the Matsu Valley to attend. And they're requesting that if there's any youth under the age of 18 to bring a parent or guardian, but it should be a really fun day. I've seen kind of the behind the scenes stuff, and it looks really awesome. They're gonna have like a decorated, passenger plane in their warehouse, and just like so much, exciting stuff for just youth to participate in. So it should be super cool. And in the airport updates, there's links to register for all of these like events or different things that I'm going to mention. So you can go on easily and just figure out how to participate in these things. The other thing next up is the ANC Part 150 noise study. So we don't have major updates with it so far, but what I can tell you is the active noise monitoring process of the Part 150 noise study has been completed. And so the next step in the process is the study advisory committee meeting. And the next one's going to take place October 7th at 10 a.m. in the flat top conference room in the North Terminal at ANC. So that's exciting, and it's something that's open to the public, so you guys are welcome to attend. The next thing is the 2026 NASEO Annual Convention and Trade Show. So this is something that's meant more for people in the aviation industry. but any aviation professionals are welcome to come and look into the latest trends in aviation and different airports around the country. And this year's theme is navigating new frontiers, and that should be held September 21st through the 24th, and would just be a great way to make connections with people in the industry. Something that's linked to that is the 2026 FAI International Aviation Art Contest. And so if you know any youth, again, who are really into art, we're inviting all young artists to participate in this contest. You can, I think that there's like things you can win from it. Yeah, so there's national prizes available, so you can actually win money for submitting your art. But the theme this year is Fly to Save Lives, and so there's a link to submit art if you know anybody who's interested in that. The next up is our long range transportation plan that the Department of Transportation is working on right now. It's a plan that looks like 30 years out. It's the vision of how we want transportation to look in the future. And so we're inviting people in the community to go and put input into that. So if you have time, it'd be good to share your experience of traveling and new updates or things you'd want to see with transportation in our state. The next thing is we have the Department of Transportation Aviation Regulation Reform. And so this has to do with airports all across the state of Alaska. And so it's really requesting input on any updates to state regulations regarding airport administration, leasing, and operations. So if you have personal experience with that or think you might have a good insight into updates that would be good for that, we would love your input. And then last off is just we're wrapping up our peak season. Summer, we get the most people coming through the airport, majority of our traffic. And so we're just trying to remind people to arrive early when you come to travel at ANC. And so we recommend arriving 2 hours early for domestic flights and then 3 hours early for international flights. And then as always, if you're interested in a job at the airport, apply on Local 71 or and you can also sign up for Gov Delivery. So if you want to receive these, airport updates, you can go on and we'll send them right to you. And we send it out the beginning of every month. But those are the biggest things I've got for the month of September. Lots going on. And if anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them.
Okay, I'm going to interject just the first question. If you can be brief,
Yes.
can you provide us, I think all of us are probably curious about what happened with the air traffic control tower relocation FAA funding situation. And, I guess it's going out for bids now again. So if you want to just kind of cover that in 1 minute.
Yeah.
About.
Yeah, so we're technically I'm not supposed to speak on this, but it's just because they're the FAA and they're our partner. And so I unfortunately can't really speak on their behalf of why they chose to cancel it. But what we do know is that they're interested in investing in the airport, and we're excited to work with them through, the issues that they're dealing with, to, make a new tower happen at some point. Hopefully it will. But we're doing everything we can to work with them to get a project and get a new tower. And we're happy to work with them through the issues. But yeah, that's kind of really all I can say right now. We're still kind of learning ourselves about kind of what's happening with it and what's going on. A lot of it's very new news to a lot of people, and so it's something we're kind of just working through issues, I guess. And it's something we want to see and we're hoping we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of all I can really share for right now, though.
I appreciate it. I think some of us were just very curious about how that happened. Any quick questions, Lexi?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to, oh,
Jean Belowski has her hand up, followed by me.
thank you, John. Go ahead, Jean.
Okay, Lex, thank you for being here. And I have a question. Between the North Terminal and the post office on Postmark Drive, there's a taxiway. And it used to have a gate that would come down if there were a small aircraft passing through.
Mhm.
And now it's a stop sign. Is that a permanent change?
I'm actually not completely sure if that's permanent, but from my understanding, I'm pretty sure the gate broke somehow. Um, I'm sure that their intention is to fix it, but I can figure that out and get back to you.
Okay, thanks. I see a lot of people, they barely stop because they're not used to it. And now
Totally.
you do have a neon sign that's now saying, stop, you're approaching a stop sign, so that's helping. But
Okay.
the chances of a plane coming, 9 out of 10 times there's no plane. And
Yeah.
the one time there's a plane, the gate would come down and everyone would stop. And then the rest of the time we could all just drive through. So I just wondered if it was permanent or not. And if you don't know, that's fine, but maybe next time we'll have an answer.
Yes, absolutely. I will work on figuring that out. And it's also good to know that you think it's a safety issue.
Yeah.
Just because people aren't really stopping all the way. So I'll let people know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Thanks, Lex. With Dave Bronson's departure, I'm assuming that Angie Spears is now taking back over the role as acting director of TSAIA.
So we have an operations division manager um, who works on the 4th floor in the South Terminal. And he is currently taking over the responsibilities for Dave Bronson with his resignation. I still think Angie Spear, though, since we've restructured, Angie Spear is still like above him, though. So she'll probably still like overlook a lot of ANC decisions. But we do have an operations division manager in place to work in Dave's capacity or the airport manager's capacity when they're not there.
Great, thanks.
Sorry, could you pronounce his name? Could you provide his name again, please?
The title?
His name, the operations.
Yeah, his name is Aaron Danielson.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay, thanks so much for providing an airport report for us this month. And
Absolutely.
kind of, it's dovetailing into something you brought up, and we'll jump into old and new business with regard to this DOTPUF request for aviation regulation reform. And so if you could just hang on and not drop off quite yet.
Okay.
We just wanted to see if we, remind me, board, were we going to form a committee to brainstorm and see if there's any recommendations that yes. We talked about forming an ad hoc committee with the board as its base to kind of look at regs that we think we want to weigh in on. One of my concerns, I think, in the board's concerns was this effort to streamline might reduce public outreach or engagement on lease proposals when they're out for public review and comment, that they would shorten that or perhaps even cut that out. So if I could have one of the board perhaps move to form.
And I would say just Lamar might get involved since he's paying attention to airport issues.
Well, he's a board member, so of course he would.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have the board as the base, but is there anybody else that would like to well, first, can we have a motion to create an ad hoc committee?
Move to create an ad hoc committee for airport aviation regulations reform.
Second, this is Kathleen Belowski.
Okay. So, would anybody like to join the board in that effort to take a look at regs, especially probably in the leasing area? Do I see any hands at all? Everybody see any hands? If not, the board will take that on. And comment period is September 15th, so it's coming up. So it's something we're gonna have to do next week. Okay. Note that. This board. Okay. Okay, next under old and new business is the ratification of comments that the board has already submitted with regard to the K-Lot General Aviation Hangar Development proposal. They're at the southeast of Lake Hood Strip, that it's in Class B Turnagain Bog wetlands. So they did have to apply for wetland fill permit, and the deadline to comment was during the summer, and the deadline was August 11th. So we did submit comments and they need to be ratified. So if I could have a motion to ratify these comments, I would appreciate it.
I'll move. Kathy, this is Karen.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Second?
I'll second. Dan Gleason.
Okay, I got Lamar too. So can I have Lamar as as the second?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And just FYI, thank you, Dan, husband Dan Gleason, for hosting our meeting this evening. He's up on the slope, but it's amazing what technology can do when you do things via Zoom. So thanks, Dan. Okay, so this letter was sent out with our meeting notice. I think it went out yesterday. So does John or Lamar, do you want to just give very brief highlights, so to speak, of what we emphasized in this comment letter with regard to core wetland fill permit?
I'll give a brief highlight. There's been a number of folks who have been working with the proposed developer. That includes Lamar, Laura Strand, and some other folks. And a permit application was submitted for a core wetlands permit. It's a relatively minor core wetlands permit. They're not filling very many acres of wetlands. And so we looked at the application, and it appears the mitigation they're proposing is adequate, with the exception of one of our longstanding concerns with wetlands. So we just sort of expressed that we've had longstanding concerns about the cumulative development of wetlands in the airport area, particularly in Turnagain Bog and Postmark Bog, and we'd really like to see some mitigation for future wetland loss taken to protect and perhaps reestablish some of the Turnagain Bog wetlands. So we put that in our comments. I don't know that I know when the permit is going to be issued, and I'm not quite sure what effect it will have, but it's that's kind of the basis of our comments.
Okay. Okay, thank you, John. Okay, so there's been a motion for TCC to approve the comments, or excuse me, ratify the comments that were submitted on August 11th on this item. So let's go ahead and do a vote on that. So all in favor, please raise your hand. And I'll see if I can do the same. I forgot how you do that. Anyway, I'm a yes. So can the board help me count hands, please? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Just a heads up, when you do a thumbs up, it disappears. So it's better to raise your hand if you're trying to raise a hand versus a thumbs up.
And I saw Mark's thumbs up go up, and so if he meant
Okay,
it.
so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10,
11.
11. Okay. All right. So 11. And is there anybody opposed to ratifying this letter? Please raise your hand.
Kathy, this is Sarah. I have to go on as abstained if
Sarah.
you could mark that down.
Oh, sure. Sarah, Karen, is your hand raised for a yay or a nay? Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, yes, I would be happy to have a 1 abstention.
That's 2 abstentions. This is Lynn Keneally. Hi.
Okay, thank you. I see 0 no's and 2 abstentions. So that ratification passes. And thank you to Lamar and John who kind of took the lead on this, and some also Laura Strand and some of your other neighbors, Lamar. This is going to be, we've had this on our agenda in the past, and so it's definitely going to be the closest kind of development like this to our Turnagain neighborhood boundaries. It's kind of scary because it's only about 150 feet from the property line. And it's going to be a pretty large facility. Is it 6 hangars? Does that sound right? 6 hangar buildings? Yeah. So it's a substantial development. Okay, let me mark down that this is ratified. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Okay, also under old and new business, we have, let me write this down too. Okay, next on the agenda, we have TCC resolution with regard to the transit supportive development overlay proposal by the planning department and certain assembly members who have taken the lead on this. And I'm going to go ahead and let John jump in and kind of do your thing about all of this. And so what's happening is there is a public hearing scheduled September 8th, but we've been notified that that's likely going to be delayed till October. And so they've also committed, representatives have committed to Graham Downey has committed from the Muni to attend next month's October 2nd meeting to discuss this. But we need to get comments in now by September 8th. So go ahead, John, see if you can sort it all out for us.
Okay. Well, I will give a short presentation. I do want to recognize Daniel McKenna Foster from the Planning Department, who is in the audience. He's been
welcome, Daniel.
Yeah, he's been helpful in providing information and may have answers to some of the questions. There may be some differences in opinion about what we think the ordinance is going to do, and I will provide some information and then some things that I will indicate that are my opinions about what the effects are going to be. This is something that's been keeping us pretty much consumed since about the middle of July when it was formally introduced before the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so I will give a presentation for about 10 minutes. We'll open it up for questions and answers and then bring up the resolution for consideration. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll see if this works. Share. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and so what I'm going to try to do here is go to the very beginning of this. Bear with me. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of this chat bar if I can because I find it annoying. Okay, so this is the transit supported development overlay. And as a Turnagain Community Council representative, I've been corresponding on this, coordinating with other community councils, and was also part of a 2-session focus group that was hosted by the mayor's office and by the Federation of Community Councils on this. Okay, so the origin, this is a draft ordinance that was co-sponsored by Aaron Baldwin Day and George Martinez, and it was formally introduced to PZC on July 14th. This actually goes back quite a ways. It goes back to the 2020 comprehensive plan, which makes it pretty close to 20 plus years old, and also further refined in the 2040 land use plan. And the objectives are to make the most of land and infrastructure, as well as building an efficient transportation system, to promote housing, mixed uses, and walkability along transit corridors, that housing near transit equals lower costs, more choices, and stronger transit, and that higher density of housing equals more housing, more choice, and more affordable. So this is what came out of the 2020 comprehensive plan. And you can sort of see these transit supported development corridors that were identified in the plan. And they're also the concept of town centers. And so I think when the 2020 plan put this together, they're looking kind of the combination of transit corridors and town centers. Then with the 2040 land use plan, they further defined the transit supported development corridors and sort of have these rectangles in different places here. And, some of them are connected, some of them are not. And this was kind of their direction for this. And this was sort of further refined. And so this map shows what happened since the identification of the dark blue, which were the transit supported development corridors from the 2040 plan, and sort of how this was filled in by those who worked on it since then. And so this combination of the dark blue and the magenta then became what was the transit supported development map for the tax abatement ordinance, which was passed, I think, in March of this year. And it provided tax abatement for development of multifamily housing with certain level in these areas. This map then became the basis of a proposal for a transit supported development zoning overlay. And at the time we saw this map for tax abatement, we had some questions about it, but we did decide not to raise them. Had we known that this map was going to be used for a transit supported zoning overlay, we would have probably had some concerns and requested that it be reconsidered and be involved in this. So if you look at this area, this is kind of the areas that are in Turnagain. And then this map dials down a little bit more in terms of what is within the TSDO, as I'll call it, for Turnagain. You've got West High on the upper right corner, and it kind of shows neighborhoods that include Huntington Park, Port of Forest Park Drive, some areas on the other side of Northern Lights to the south. And then there's an area that's kind of off of Spenard Road. And I have to admit, Kathy's probably more familiar with this than I am. I'm a little bit fuzzy as to where the TCC boundary is in this area, but my gut feeling is that this does include some properties that are within the TCC boundary.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the area that we're talking about for Turnagain. If you look at kind of why these boundaries, and I've taken some of this out of a memorandum that was prepared by the planning department that explained how this boundary was developed for tax abatement. It was based on the tax abatement boundaries from the 2025-35 ordinance, including existing bus routes and opportunity zones. It removed lakes, wetlands, parks, and rights of way. It removed industrial zoning, except for those areas which were designated for rezoning within the 2040 land use plan. And I'm assuming those would be areas that would be designated for potentially business or residential. It added or removed parcels for contiguity. And I think the added is the big question, because there was a lot that was added. I'm going to have to say there was very little community council or neighborhood involvement in setting these boundaries. We didn't know about it until we saw it in tax abatement, and we were not asked for input other than input at public hearings. So what are some of the property use and characteristics under this overlay? It encompasses a large area. There's essentially nearly 30,000 residentially zoned parcels alone within the TSDO, in addition to some commercial properties. And if you look at the pie chart on the left, in terms of the percentage parcels of zoned parcels, the biggest percent is R2M, R2M SL, which is multifamily, followed by R3 and R3 SL. But if you look at single family, two family neighborhoods, which is what kind of came out of the home initiative, you add up the R1, the R2, the R2D, and some others, you come up with 33% of the residentially zoned lots within TSDO are single two-family neighborhoods. So what does it do? What does the overlay do? It overrules the requirements of the underlying zoning districts, including single two-family neighborhoods. And I'm going to say that's going to be one of our major concerns, is with the impact on single two-family neighborhoods. It allows mixed uses. Now, originally there were 61 newer modified uses proposed for single two-family neighborhoods. Many have now been moved to a separate ordinance, which we haven't seen yet, but I think is coming out soon. There was originally a 1,400-foot minimum lot size, but there's now no minimum lot size. The height limits started at 75 feet for the entire overlay, and then it was reduced to 48% on local streets. And now the new ordinance, which just came out last night, has 40 feet on local streets. 100% lot coverage is by buildings allowed with a 5-foot minimum setback. This provides flexibility in design in terms of what people can do with their property. And it also means that property owners can opt out. And what that means is if you're within this, you don't necessarily have to be governed by what this says, but it also means if your neighbor wants to do something, they can do what is within this ordinance. So what does the proposed ordinance doesn't do or fix? And there's been a number of things that happened recently that kind of complicate this. The Assembly removed all on-site parking requirements in 2023. They also removed requirements for written notice to affected property owners by overlay zones. And I think it was 2024, 2025. I couldn't find it, so I can't tell you for a fact. They suspended various residential design standards in 2 separate ordinances in 2024 and 2025. One thing we've been told is that valid covenants take priority over this ordinance. So if you have valid covenants, and the big question is valid, they would trump the overlay. Existing natural resource protections and landscaping requirements remain in effect, although I think some of the landscape requirements are a bit uncertain to me, given changes in lot coverage and setbacks, and I need to do more reading there. So one of our biggest concerns is this, in our point of view, this has been inadequate public process. The original concept was developed with narrow stakeholder input. This was also a problem with the home initiative, which was also developed with narrow stakeholder input. When you kind of see the finished ordinance for introduction, you haven't had meaningful input into it. The Assembly ordinance exempting requirements of notifying property owners affected by zoning overlays, well, this is really, you would consider this a factual rezoning of some of these lots. There is no longer a requirement to notify those 30,000 property owners about this effort. And one of the concerns is it's too expensive and it's not required. This was formally introduced in the middle of summer through a PZC agenda when most of the community councils were in recess. Based on some recommendations, some of which from my testimony, they established a mayor's focus group, although they, by size, had to limit the stakeholder participation. I think there were a total of 6 community councils that participated. And by my count, it's somewhere between 12 or perhaps 21 community councils that are affected by a piece of this. Right now, this is on track for Planning and Zoning Commission deliberation in October, probably introduction to the Assembly in November. Our basically concern is that a PZC or Assembly hearing where you're limited to 3 minutes per person and 5 minutes per community council is really not an adequate public process. There's a possibility of slowing this down. There's been talk of a municipal open house. One of the other things going on right now is they are updating the 2020 and 2040 land use plans. And while one position might be, since this was recommended in the 2020 and 2040 land use plan, they don't have to coordinate it with the update. We would probably differ with that conclusion. That's just a difference in opinion. Are the overlay map neighborhoods included appropriate? Again, there really wasn't any meaningful consultation with community councils in developing the boundaries for the tax overlay map. And just because it was approved for the tax abatement, it doesn't mean all those neighborhoods should be in the zoning overlay. I would say we could look at a couple within Forest Park and Huntington Park and some other areas, and they don't necessarily make a lot of sense other than they're a quarter mile from a bus route. There really needs to be a serious, meaningful, inclusive effort involving all affected stakeholders, community councils, in revisiting this map and at least seeing if there's some options there. And then a number of community councils feel that phased targeted implementation option should revise the map. Are the proposed TSDO uses appropriate? From some of the material I've seen, this essentially takes uses that were allowed under the R4 and now applies it to the entire overlay. And the question is, are those appropriate for single family, two-family neighborhoods, given the potential level of traffic, level of size of the activities and parking? There were originally 61 new modified uses that occurred in single, two-family neighborhoods. Commercial uses will be addressed in a separate ordinance. The majority, from my read of it, were use by right, which means there's no requirement for public notice, and they don't allow the contesting whether or not the use is appropriate. Some of them may require a site review, some of them may require a major site review, some of them may require conditional uses, and those all have different levels of public notice and public hearings. My personal opinion is that a majority of these new uses are inappropriate for single, two-family residential neighborhoods with significant impacts, if not mitigated. And that means if you look at dealing with parking issues, you look at dealing with building scale design issues, look at dealing with pedestrian safety issues, maybe some of these things can be mitigated and are appropriate, but we're not there yet. Again, personal opinion, a lot of these proposed changes, while very aspirational, have not been thought out in terms of what the effects are going to be. And like I said, even though the commercial community uses will be separated out for a separate concurrent ordinance, that doesn't solve the problem with these uses. This also changes dimensional standards. Height limits of 40 to 75 feet within the zone. 40 feet on local streets, 75 feet along the major arterials. And so there are questions of blocking sunlight and solar panels. There's questions of neighborhood scale impacts. And again, there's difference of opinion about this. Setbacks, 100% lot coverage. There's a 5-foot minimum setback. I'm not quite sure how that works with 100% lot coverage. Maybe that means you can build 100% of the lot within the 5-foot setback. To me, it raises questions about adequacy for on-site parking and snow storage. No minimum lot size. Again, the question about what does that mean for on-site parking, for snow storage? What type of building can you build on a small lot? You know, there is interest in building tiny houses in areas, and that's appropriate. And then there's neighborhood scale impacts. You know, all these changes in dimensional standards can result in taller, blockier buildings packed in next to other uses that can degrade the scale and the functionality of the neighborhoods. And this is a very controversial issue with differences of opinion, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. There's questions about parking, traffic, and pedestrian safety. Since it increases density and it reduces on-site snow storage because more building on the lot coverage, coupled with the assembly eliminating on-site parking, you know, we're concerned the following will happen. There's going to be more cars forced to park in the street year-round. Not all residential streets are designed to accommodate on-street parking. More cars on the street narrow the traffic lanes, and they create dangerous traffic conditions. They'll force pedestrians further into the traffic lane, which I think runs counter to the ordinance. They complicate snow storage and removal in the winter. They complicate solid waste services, and they also potentially obstruct fire and emergency response. And again, I just like to see this thought out a little bit better. So some graphics from the presentation the municipality has given. There were sort of numbers of examples of transit corridors that were given. One of them was Arlington, Virginia. I think one was, I don't know if it was Minneapolis or Seattle. And where you have a mature city like this, the concept here is to build taller buildings, increase the density, give more residential mixed use development along the major corridor. And then as you feather back, you get into more traditional neighborhoods. And so this is one concept. I think this is a grander, greater scale than is envisioned for Anchorage, but it's just an example. Here are some other things that came from both presentations and the 2040 land use plan. The top two are from presentations that were given on TSDO, where you show multifamily next to smaller single family. Here's one where you have what's called a 5/1 mixed commercial use next to a single family, where you have commercial on the ground floor and you have residential up above. And I think one of the objectives of this, and the question is, how do you do it, is can you create mixed use, reduce the amount of car traffic required, and have it done in a way that's compatible with the existing neighborhoods. Here are some things from the 2040 plan, which shows some different ideas where you have sort of probably 0 lot line townhouses. This looks like it might be a duplex or it could be a fourplex, where you have some things that are developed within the scale of the neighborhood. And that, I think, is one of the things to consider. So the big question is an issue of exclusion versus neighborhood scale. There's concern over neighborhood character and neighborhood scale is discriminatory and is used to exclude people from neighborhoods. On the other hand, many single two-family neighborhoods are considered desirable because of the scale of development, the lower levels of traffic, and off-street parking. And the question is potential impacts on neighborhood function, public safety, and property values. Can we find a win-win? This requires compromises in uses, dimensional standards, parking, residential design standards. And that's the dialogue we have not yet had, and we would like to see if we could. So what happens next? You know, we have a resolution that we're going to talk about, which recommends suspending moving this ordinance through P&Z in the assembly till there can be more discussion. You know, my personal opinion, and shared by other community councils, is there's need to be a more inclusive working group under the mayor's office where you get all the stakeholders, housing advocates, community councils, home builders, small businesses, realtors, and appraisers. And let's talk about some idea. Let's revisit the components of this, including potentially phased or targeted implementation. Take some areas that make the most sense, implement it, see if it works, what are the positives, the negatives, and then move forward. So we have the resolution for consideration. We have a special land use committee meeting, and I think Kathy might have corrected me. I don't think it's September 22nd, but potentially October 2nd, where we would have Graham and Daniel and others come in and have a conversation. Right now, there's a September 8th meeting of P&Z where the hearing is being continued, but there's been a request that that be continued into October so that all community councils can meet and talk. You have the option of submitting verbal, written testimony, and verbal testimony. There are limitations that if you testify once, unless there's been a substantive change, you cannot testify again. And then we're looking at assembly action, probably November introduction, and get yourself informed on this and let people know what you think. There is a website that you can look up, which is, if you Google Anchorage TSDO, it'll take you to a project website and gives you a lot of information on that. You can look up the Assembly or the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting agenda and get the packet and the new version of the ordinance. And there's actually a new staff report that I see that's available. So there are places you can go to find that information. So I guess with that, I'd like to sort of see if there are any questions and comments, and some of those Daniel might be able to answer also. So I see Jonathan Galen has his hand up, and I'm going to try to toggle back and forth and see who else we have. So go ahead, Jonathan.
Okay, first of all, John, I really appreciate your succinct overview on a very complex, and I think this whole issue has not been thought out well at all with this resolution by the Assembly or moving forward on this whole process. I'm kind of shocked at our local community representatives in the city fathers, as it were, really has not given any consideration to the community councils and the individuals. I would point everyone to the pass out. I'm looking at it. It was the Turnagain Community Council Agenda TSDO fact sheet. I don't know if you wrote that, John, or put it together, but it's
I did. And actually, let me make one admission here. Daniel pointed out that fact sheet was written probably about a week ago. And since then, the landscape has changed. So some of those facts are now not correct. There's now a 40-foot minimum height limit. There's no minimum lot size, and a lot of the uses will be taken up in a separate ordinance. And he did sort of correct that with the R1, there's I think a 40% maximum lot coverage as compared to 30%. But yeah, so but we did put that together along with Rogers Park.
Well, looking at that, it scares the hell out of me, and it should scare the hell out of anyone that cares about quality neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods, R1, R2, So purportedly, this is a cautionary tale before it even is told, that no setbacks. High-rise office buildings, perhaps not just residential buildings, can be put next to a single-family dwelling. There are developers that can buy small pieces of property or create a higher price for homeowners to sell out and put up large high-rises next to the individual that's been there 10 years, 40 years, 50 years, and it's gonna lower the value and the equity of homeowners, which represents a significant amount of net wealth for most people. You've got single family dwellings next to, who knows, office buildings. I'm not convinced that the recent ordinance to change the architectural designs are valid. We've talked about that before. You've also got a major problem, which we've discussed at length, which is the parking issue. Remember 2 years ago when we had one of the greatest snowfalls of all time in South Central Alaska? The safety issue, there was no place to put the snow. There were cars everywhere. As the cars and the parking becomes more and more problematic, especially with multi-generational housing, which is increasing, we had issues with public safety vehicles, ambulances, fire engines getting to houses. So all this whole situation does, it exacerbates, even to a large degree, larger problems we will have. I do not understand why our assembly members pretty much signed off on this without thinking about this. Homelessness is notwithstanding, you can't create chaos, lower property values in lieu of trying to find a way to create additional housing. So thank you very much again, John. And I mean, it's just the tip of an iceberg. And the succinct, I agree with you. I think this is particularly onerous, and the assembly should allow individuals and community councils an open forum. This is too great an issue not to allow public comment that can be quite valid. So thank you.
And again, a couple corrections, with the changes to the ordinance, on the local streets and in the single family, two family neighborhoods, the height limit's now been lowered to 40 feet from 75. So just want to point that out. And I would say that the intent of this ordinance is to address our housing crisis. But as I said, I'm not sure it's been well thought out, and it would be nice to have the opportunity to do so. So I see Lynn, and if I pronounce your last name, is it Kennelly or Keneally?
Pat had her hand raised.
Okay, we'll go with Pat first. Okay, thanks.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to comment on the fact that we should be having, I mean, you mentioned the comp plan should be updated. I mean, it's supposed to be updated every 10 years. And I'm not sure where we are on that. And because I've worked on the comp plans, every comp plan that we've had since they started having to have a comp plan here. But one of the things that we planned for in the last one that I worked on was for the fact that there was going to be a housing shortage, and that we were going to outgrow this the land use in this area. And that's was planned for with those what you showed us, like the original transit corridors and the town centers and those things. But what's happening now is not what was part of that plan. It's gone beyond that. And the other thing is that I really did want to have protect the sunlight, protect the open space, because we need that. You've got to have places for people to park the cars, and they've got to have setbacks from the road. And so I'm going to stop there and add, but I do want to know if the presentation you just gave, is that something you can email to us?
I will. This is the one I gave as an updated version from what was on the website. And I think
Okay.
I'll work with Kathy to get it out to our mailing list. 'Cause
Okay, thank
I
you.
have corrected some of the inaccuracies there.
And keep us informed and well, I'm supposed to be helping you anyway. But anyway, this plan is not, there's public input, no public input. Everyone I worked on before, we've had lots of public input, lots of community meetings, and it wasn't done like in 2 months or 3 months or a year. It sometimes would take 2 or 3 years to work it out. So we can't rush this. Thank you.
Let me go with Lynn, and then I might ask Daniel if he has anything to add if there aren't other comments.
Yeah, thank you. I guess my biggest concern with just the current letter is if the next hearing is going to be extended, do we have a little more time to refine the letter and be more specific? I'm afraid of anything that's just like blanket opposition, and currently it feels a little bit like blanket opposition. And I think the Muni is trying to find solutions to a real problem. I don't want to just dismiss them and say, not in my backyard. So that's my question. If the hearing's going to be delayed, do we have more time to refine this and have specific requests and not just say, no, no, no?
So two points. One, we may not have more time because it depends right now. If I remember the schedule correctly, it's going to be before the Planning and Zoning Commission for deliberation on the 3rd. And the question is, do we meet in time and have a resolution? The other thing I guess I would point out is kind of what the resolution says, which says we oppose it in its current form due to lack of adequate public process and concerns for avoidable land use and road and safety. And that requests that it be postponed until there's adequate and comprehensive participation, including TCC and all affected stakeholders. And that it should be coordinated with the updated revision of the 2040 and 2020 plans. So we're not opposing it outright, but we're saying in its current form, we need those changes. I think people need to read the ordinance, they need to read the staff report, they need to go to the website and make some decisions on their own. But unless there really is kind of a change in the ability to sit down and talk about some of these things in a dialogue versus just giving them comments and thank you very much, not much may change.
I guess I agree with that. And I'm curious if we, TCC, can get things like the agenda and the items that you sent sooner, because I'm kind of feeling like I've literally only had 24 hours to look at this as well.
Yes. And Kathy, I'm assuming that we can use the FCC to send things out to our mailing list, which would include other background information. And again, when I get a breathing room when I'm not speaking, I'll put in the chat the TSDO website link so you can look at that. There's actually an interactive map on that, which is really helpful that you can zone in on and see where individual properties are. But we'll try to get you that information.
Thank you. Just sooner than the 24 hours. I did find it. It was just only a day ago that email went out.
I think it's important to note that John has been working really hard to turn things around as soon as he gets them. And the assembly has been changing things. The P&Z has been changing things so quickly that the entire process is incredibly difficult to keep up with. And I think that's a main point of the resolution, is that this isn't a public process if we can't keep up with what's even being considered. Like it, and then to just, instead of addressing any of the issues people bring up, to just split them into different resolutions is again not solving the fundamental issue with allowing the public to understand and provide input and dialogue about these things that impact, like was pointed out, most families' largest asset.
Yeah, and just to point out that when we submitted comments, when this went before Planning and Zoning Commission in, was it May?
June, mid-July.
That was the first version. It's now on version 4. And that just happened yesterday. And we were just notified, or a couple days ago, that now this ordinance that they've been pushing for, several weeks has now been split into two. So I hear your frustration, Lynn, but it has been very difficult to keep up. And the PowerPoint presentation that John presented this evening, he even had to modify it from when the board had our meeting on Tuesday and we saw it on Tuesday.
Yep.
So this is what we're having to deal with. It's not been easy. So we're way behind on our agenda.
I see Sandy and
know this is
Elizabeth.
important. So
Yeah.
Elizabeth, yes, Sandy or Elizabeth. And then does anybody else have their hand raised at this point? Okay, then we do need to see if we want to consider a resolution. So
Daniel.
go ahead.
Okay.
But just a quick comment that I think everybody that spoke made very good points, and we won't repeat any of those. I do think the resolution's appropriate because there is no guarantee that P&Z will not go forward next Monday night. They've been asked not to do that, but they could choose to ignore that ask and go forward. So I think making the statement of slow down, we want everybody to have some time to look at this, to me is very appropriate. I'll just leave it at that for the moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Sandy.
Okay, thank you. So a resolution has been drafted via the board, and it was sent out with our meeting notice. John, would you like to go ahead and read it?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is
Or
I'm
ask if you're
going to try to
ready.
share the screen again. Let's see if we can look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, have to squint, but yeah.
Yeah, so I'll read it. And, we did put in from the first version, we put in a new one, which was suggested by Kathleen McCoy, which is really important, that we are sensitive to the need to develop more housing for Anchorage. We want to see successful progress, including engaging the community to help develop solutions compatible between new development and existing development. And this will require study and decision timeline beyond the end of this year. Whereas we only learned about this proposed ordinance when it was listed.
John, excuse me. I'd like to go ahead and have somebody formally move
Thanks. Yep.
this resolution, please.
I so move.
Okay, who was that?
Sandy.
Oh, Sandy. Okay, thank you, Sandy. Could I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Okay, the second item is whereas Turnagain Community Council Board only learned about this proposed ordinance when it was listed for a public hearing in July 14th Planning and Zoning agenda, introduced when most community councils, including TCC, have a summer recess and had no input into crafting the ordinance and the zoning overlay. Whereas portions of the neighborhoods off of West Northern Lights, Bernard Road, and Wisconsin are in this, where we have direct experience with the intended and unintended consequences of permitting mixed use in a residential neighborhood along a major road. And that's the Rustic Goat restaurant, where we supported it. Great process. There was unintended parking and traffic issues that had to be resolved through a second off-road parking lot. Whereas this is currently written as a de facto large-scale zoning change without any public notice to affected property owners, is counter to our adopted West Anchorage District Plan and would adversely affect our long-term established residential neighborhoods by increasing height limits and lot coverage, reducing setbacks, minimum lot size, harm the scale of established residential neighborhoods, introducing incompatible uses with no or minimal review standards, creating on-street parking demand not designed for most of our residential streets and resulting in traffic, vehicle, and pedestrian safety, trash collection, fire safety, and snow storage. Whereas PZC is in the process of currently revising the 2020 Comp Plan 2040 Land Use Plan, and that this is a significant implementation action that goes beyond the direction of those plans and should be discussed as part of revising those plans. And whereas despite recent limited efforts to involve more stakeholders other than the housing advocates in crafting the ordinance and developing alternative approaches, the process has occurred too quickly and without sufficient time and notice before the September 8th meeting to fully understand and develop more thoughtful and comprehensive recommendations. Therefore, be it resolved that we strongly oppose it in its current form due to lack of adequate public process and concerns for avoidable land use, scale, road safety, and fiscal impacts, which we really haven't mentioned, to many of our residential neighborhoods. Request for requested further action on the ordinance, including PZC deliberation, be postponed until there can be adequate and comprehensive participation, including TCC and all affected stakeholders. And the recommended action is to be coordinated with the 2020 and 4040 land use plan. So that is the ordinance as written. How do you wish to proceed?
Thank you, John. Since we've already had some time to discuss this, is there anything, does anybody have any questions specifically regarding the resolution that John has drafted for the council to consider? If not, I think we should go ahead and vote. So all in favor of the TCC resolution regarding the transit supported development overlay, reference PZC cases number 2025-0030 and 2025-0034. So all in favor, please raise your hand, and I've got mine raised. Okay, so help me count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, you've got 15 on one.
And Marilyn's
got
put her hand up to
16.
16.
16, okay, thank you. 17. Does it stop at 16 or do we have 17? 18. I think we have 18 now.
Yep.
Okay. All opposed. So everybody please lower your hands. And if there's any opposition, please raise your hand. We'll give it a second for people to lower their hand. Okay, so I see one. I see one hand. Is that correct? Am I missing anybody? I think there's one opposed. So that motion passes 18-1. So with John's leadership, the board will definitely get this submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I guess before PNZ's hearing, now scheduled, could change, but now scheduled for next.
The deadline, Kathy, for submitting comments again to the packet.
Yes.
Is going.
Yeah, there's a comment deadline too.
Yeah, the comment deadline to get into the packet is tomorrow at 1.
Okay. Tomorrow at 1. Okay, so all right, we'll get that submitted by 1 p.m. Friday. Tomorrow. Okay, many thanks. Especially many thanks to John for all your hard work on taking the lead on this on behalf of the council.
Here, here.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
And encourage anybody to show up at these hearings and testify because they need to hear from a variety of people and councils. Okay, so we are back to our agenda, which I've lost all concept of time and what I did with it. There it is. Oh, no, that's not even it. Well, the next item is the Minnesota Drive I and L Streets corridor plan. And I need to find my agenda. I apologize. Somehow it got so anyway, so there are items in this plan that two in particular that certainly caught my attention, and we wanted to share that with the body and make sure that we maybe take a position on this and sooner rather than later. So I think can one of the board members screen share a couple of items here? Out of the, there's 3 documents that have been released with regard to this this proposal on Minnesota. And one is the .puff Minnesota plus IL Streets Corridor Plan. And one is the, oh, sorry. One is out of the PowerPoint presentation that indicates what kinds of things are proposed at this point in time. And then they are looking for public comment. And I'm sorry that I can't, somebody help me out with the agenda when that public hearing or
It's,
that
comments are
hearing-
due September 10th.
Thank you. Coming up.
Yes.
So who would like to screen share?
Somebody already is. It might be Karen. Someone's already screen sharing.
Oh, I'm just seeing, oh, here we go. So that on page, I think it was 5 of this document. Let me double check. Page 5 of the corridor plan, the actual corridor plan. It indicates that, so if you can go to page 5, Karen. Oh, you have gone to page 5. I apologize. So under the first black bullet, excuse me, intersection and roundabout alternatives, the first segment under that is called roundabout feasibility. The team identified Northern Lights and Benson as candidate intersections for roundabouts. So this would be a roundabout at Minnesota and Northern Lights and another roundabout at Minnesota and Benson. This is noting the need for further analysis of space requirements and lane configurations and pedestrian accommodations. A roundabout at 15th and L Street was also discussed. So that caught my attention, I can tell you that. And we wanted to see what the body may feel about that. But before we discuss that, our second one that we identified in the documentation that's been produced so far is a PowerPoint presentation that, and so if you can, yes, Karen, thank you. And I'm not sure, these aren't numbered, but so you'll just have to scroll through and find the one that, keep going. So just keep going. It's a map that shows, there's those roundabouts. and it should be coming up pretty soon about it with a map that shows, it has to do with the Romig access off Minnesota. So if we can just keep scrolling. Oh, okay, so maybe you went one too far, or maybe you haven't gone far enough. There we go, that's it. So if you can look at that white box with orange border, it says eliminate Romig access and add driveway from Northern Lights to the Romig West Campus. And this is along Minnesota, where right now there is a way to turn into the Romig area of the campus from Minnesota. And this draft plan that's still being developed, the recommendation is to eliminate that. But this map does not show where this driveway that they're talking about from Northern Lights would actually be built. And the one thing that I could only think of with no engagement up to this point, and that's on us. I missed the August 20th meeting. But a plan that came out with the West Romig campus and circulation that's probably about 10 years old or so. One of the proposals was putting in a lighted intersection where you turn into Dempsey right now. And you would actually have buses as well as, traffic, student, parent traffic come south through where the Dempsey Arena is now and kind of jig-jag in there between the post office and so forth. And then there would be a lighted intersection installed right where now there's an entrance to Dempsey, except all that tree buffer area would be wiped out because they would have multiple lanes and so forth. And that's something we haven't discussed or talked about in many years. And we never did support that as a council. But it's the only thing I can think of because they don't provide anything else. And I remember Pat, when this had come up before, said, you talked to the Dempsey Arena folks, and they said, not only no, but no. So those are the two things just at this point that jumped out and thought that council members may want to discuss and see if we want to provide some input right now.
Kathy,
Yes.
Jonathan here. I have a comment on the roundabouts. I'm not a traffic engineer. However, we're talking about Benson Boulevard intersection of, for example, the first one, Benson Boulevard and Minnesota. In the morning for a couple hours and in the late afternoon, this is one of the busiest intersections in Midtown in Anchorage, Alaska. And my initial instinct is there even enough space to put a roundabout with this number of vehicles and this much traffic, and considering the size of the higher proportion of large commercial vehicles, semis and the like, is that even a big enough area to create a roundabout? Right now we've got 6 lanes in each direction on total on Minnesota. Benson is basically 4 lanes heading east. And then the other one, John, what was the other intersection considered a roundabout?
Well, there's down by let's see, which we wouldn't kind of necessarily recommend or comment on.
15th and L.
15th and L.
L Street.
I mean, is that even big enough for a roundabout, considering it's all 4 corners are residential property?
Well, excuse me, Jonathan. So what the corridor plan at this point says that was also discussed by the working group as the team weighed drawbacks such as grade and speed. So I think that probably at this point was not something that they were going to move forward with. And
okay.
So, don't have any more detailed information about that particular location.
Yeah, I'd like to see the data that in the layman's, not even the layman's terms, but the simpleton's terms of, is there enough property to create a roundabout, given Minnesota and Benson, for example, that allows, I mean, you're going to have a boondoggle. The lights, at least there is some semblance of organization.
Down. Sit.
But that's my comment is, I'd like to see the engineering
No, I can't play
reports.
with you.
Pat, do you
Give him a treat. Give the dog a treat.
I'm sorry. I thought I put it on mute.
But in any case, yeah, I mean, that's my initial instinct is, and the roundabouts we've seen in town, there some are well planned, but they in no way have the amount of traffic coming through them. For example, O'Malley and the old Seward and so forth, Dowling, they don't have the same kind of traffic as what I mentioned just now. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jonathan. And I think, the wording of this is noting the need for further analysis of space requirements and configurations and pedestrian accommodations. So again, this is a plan that's a work in progress. They're wanting public input now to the working group. The working group meets again in October to then look at all the public comment that they may have received on some of these ideas. So it's not done with refinement, but I I think this is the ideal time and important time for our council to weigh in on those critical intersections that, you know, that could be affected. And one of the key things that is focused in this plan is pedestrian non-motorized safety. And it's difficult to imagine how roundabouts in those two intersections would be pedestrian or bike friendly. I'm not sure how, you know, that's something else to consider.
Yeah, Kathy, if I may, I don't understand how roundabouts could increase pedestrian safety, or how roundabouts would abut these multi-way boulevard ideas where you have additional side roads. But even if that is sortable, the primary issue with pedestrian fatalities in this corridor between Spenard and Benson was pedestrians crossing the traffic. And it seems like this is going to create more blind areas where you're not going to see the pedestrians
running across,
trying to cross multiple lanes of traffic. And so I don't understand how that addresses the primary motivator here, pedestrian fatalities.
You almost have to go and cross somewhere else.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to comment on the idea of, since we're kind of focusing on roundabout, any other comments with regard to roundabouts at those two intersections?
I'd like, go ahead. I'll wait.
This is Pat. Two comments really quick. One is, Kathy, I remember the Dempsey stuff. I don't know. I think we need to follow that very closely. Second is regarding roundabouts. I want more research. I've been following roundabout design in Europe, and we are nowhere near the quality of roundabout design that they have. And so until we can improve how we design our roundabouts, I'm not so sure I want roundabouts there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just wanted to comment that
sorry, Lynn. Kathleen was next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see another hand. Sorry.
For various reasons, I've been without a car for just about a year. So I've walked through mostly Midtown, but as far out as Dowling and Lake Otis. And just a couple weeks ago, I walked from Lake Otis through the roundabouts out on Dowling. Now, there are stop signals with walking lights for pedestrians, but you are taking your life in your hands. And I mean, I can say that pretty much about all of Midtown because Anchorage is not a walker-friendly city. And I also think that there is not room for a roundabout at Northern Lights in Minnesota without taking land from the businesses. There's just not room for a roundabout there. And with the congestion and the turns into cars and the post office, I just don't see it being feasible at all. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Lynn, go ahead.
Yeah, I am sorry about that. I didn't realize you were speaking next. I agree. Walking, I also don't own a car, and walking and biking through Midtown is absolutely atrociously terrible. And I do love Turnagain because it's actually pretty good in comparison to most parts of Anchorage. The research studies do show that roundabouts are safer for bikers and pedestrians, but that's typically the case in communities where people know how to use roundabouts correctly. And I'm not sure that Anchorage is one of those communities. I would be more interested in seeing research specific to Anchorage and whether Anchoragites are using roundabouts correctly enough to make it safe for walkers and bikers. I haven't seen that specific research.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? Does anybody else have any comments with regard to access to Romig? Because that really caught my attention, especially when they say shut down access from Minnesota to the Romig campus, but a new driveway from Northern Lights would have to be created, but it doesn't say where. Does anybody have any thoughts on that, Sandy?
Well, my first question is, what's the problem they're trying to solve? My second question is, we've dealt over a lot of years, many of us have dealt with a lot of issues about a lot of traffic around Romig and West for a lot of years. And one of the realities is, for about 20 minutes every morning and about 20 minutes every afternoon, there's just a lot of cars that descend on both schools, right? Not necessarily exactly at the same time. And if you close down one of those access points, you have to think about where all those cars are going to back up. And if you put something in near, at or near the Dempsey, I predict they're going to back up all the way to Minnesota and across Minnesota, because people are going to be just trying to get in to pick up their kids. So my take home is, I would look at this extraordinarily carefully, because I think you can spin off other unintended consequences. And one of the underlying issues has to do with what kids get bused to school versus what kids have to be driven. And I mean, that's a whole nother big thing to try, pay attention to and figure out. But they did open up the access from the West campus to the Romig campus off of Hillcrest some years ago now, something that I think a lot of us urged quite a number of years back.
That was part of the Safe Routes to Schools.
Yeah.
West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, my only point is that I don't know exactly who's involved in this. This is the first I've heard about this currently. And I don't know. I guess I think Turnagain, Community Council should be more involved. What's the problem they're trying to solve, and let's not create other problems that are somewhat predictable. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. And I take blame because I'm technically on the advisory committee, but I missed that last meeting where they, I think, finalized or kind of gelled all these ideas into this, these documents that now are out for
Kathy?
some review. So
Hey, Kathy,
that's bad on me, but I'll be attending the one in October.
Does the Spenard Community Council aware of this?
Yes, I believe they are. I've not talked to them about it, but they're on that working group as well, representation, so I'm sure they are.
Okay.
Okay, so does anyone want to take any formal motion or so that we can submit this to the working group and the planners that are working on this? At this point in time, I think it's probably pretty important that we do, as opposed to just saying, well, we discussed it. So Kathleen?
Hi, Kathy, I told you by email today that I went to Spenard's Community Council meeting last night, just curious to see what they were working on. And Aaron Baldwin came and gave a report from AMATS, specifically about a disruption between Alaska DOT and AMATS, and that all work on Minnesota, including the sidewalk project, which is separate from this one, and this one, are at the moment stalled because there's been a disagreement between local and state. And that's what she said. I can't elaborate more. She did say that the meeting is on the Muni website, and she described it as fireworks. And she said neither project, basically Alaska DOT says they will need to do their own studies on all of this, which would slow everything down. And I'm not really sure what's happening or how to get on that, but it was about a 20-minute talk she gave and said essentially everything on Minnesota stopped right now. That's what I can tell you.
Okay. Yeah, I did get your email and I replied to it, but, and that's good to know. I mean, it's kind of like the same with the Tisdale situation. Will it be paused? Will the hearing be here? Was the comment period there? Is the, oh, it may need to be postponed? But we, as just being asked to provide input and keep up with what's going on, puts public participation in a really difficult spot, to try and, you know, guess what may happen because we just don't have detailed information. I think it would still be good for Turnagain Community Council as a body to submit, if we have any formal thoughts about either one of these proposals at this point. It may then sit on a shelf for who knows how long because of things that are out of our control, but at least we're on record with the ideas at this point. That's my view of what I think the council should be doing. But so we're way behind on our agenda, and I can't even find my agenda, but I already know we're way behind. So
Kathy, would a letter be sufficient? A letter of comment?
well, we don't have it drafted yet to vote. So that's, we could just move and make a motion, and it's up to the body.
Well, if anybody else would be interested, I would be interested in considering a letter that notes that we have major concerns about roundabout feasibility, about a Minnesota corridor, multi-way boulevard corridor, and its protection for pedestrians, and as well as the proposed or potential elimination of ROMIG access. So those 3 points in a letter of comment to DOT by the September 10th.
Yeah,
Karen, I agree with you.
The comments at this stage in this process for the working group to get feedback on what they've done so far is September 10th.
Well, Kathy, I think if I can interject, I agree with you, Karen, 100%. But maybe some type of letter that the Turnagain Community Council would like to be informed specifically regarding any further actions, meetings, considerations, so that we might comment moving forward. So we want to be informed. That should be on the record to them.
And Kathy, I'm going to give you a time check here, and I would
Thank
suggest,
you.
given
I'm still
Jonathan's comments,
scrambling
then
to
what.
find my agenda, so I so apologize. And
That's okay. And I think so. What Karen said,
I
I would second Karen's motion with Jonathan's addition, and so I think we have some guidance to.
if I
give
could
comments
on that,
after the letter.
if I could on Jonathan, what you said, it's on me. I should have been at that last meeting and I was not. And so they have involved us. They've got it. They've involved the community councils that are along the, the Minnesota from Tudor to, down to INL. I just wasn't part of that. So
Well, don't whip yourself too much, Kathy, but if we make a comment or send them a comment that we appreciate the notice, we emphatically wish to be informed on any type of action going forward, whether it's a public meeting or a public comment or the record that's created with who's ever putting this forth.
and they do have a website, so anybody can go on the website and
So I think we have direction from Karen to
So-
go ahead and write a letter with those 3 points.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Sounds good.
Second, and let's vote on it and move on.
I've got moved by Karen and Dan, you're seconding it. Okay,
Yeah.
so all in favor of Karen writing a letter on behalf of the council on the things that we have just discussed. So if we could please raise your hand. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Sandy or Lamar, did you vote?
Lamar has his hands up.
Oh,
Hands up.
okay. Okay, so did I get 13? Oh dear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
14,
13,
Kathy.
14, 15. And Pat, are you saying raising your hand or not? I'm guessing that she's a yes. So I got 15. I hope that's accurate.
Oh, for this, yes.
Okay, and is it okay? So everybody, please lower your hands. And does anybody oppose? Is there any opposition? No. Okay, that passes. So thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda, except I know there's 3 items that I have written on my agenda, which I can't find, but I know I've got a folder that the next one is.
Hey, Karen, can you
business.
flash share your screen and put up the agenda, please?
The next is the Minnesota Drive non-motorized pavement project. It has my name assigned to it, but I have no idea what that is.
Oh, well, when we had our board meeting, that's what it's something that we had commented on previously. And it's a federal highway thing where, again, it's with regard to Minnesota Drive. There's multiple things going on with Minnesota Drive for some reason, a lot of attention. And again, with FAA and funding, and I can't speak to that. Excuse me, AMAT's funding, I can't speak to that. But they're looking at something called a Hawk pedestrian crossing treatment. Again, it's something used in other parts of the country with some success. But I don't have the agenda. Is there a comment deadline? Is that why I put
It says
this
no
down?
comment deadline, so I would say, why don't you and I look into this and we'll move
Okay,
on.
we'll just bypass that. John and Kathy
Yep.
will follow up on that. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
And Kathy, since we had no public comment on any complaints about the Vitus alcohol liquor license renewal, could we just quickly ask if anybody has any comments about that liquor store? And then
That's the next thing on the agenda, except I know there was one other thing that needed to be added under old and new business, if somebody can remember that. But yes, so we did receive notice like we do whenever a liquor license within our area, and not counting the airport, and it's Vitus. And so that's at the corner of Northern Lights and Minnesota. And so we did get notice. The assembly is going to be approving, a slew of listings of liquor licenses on the 24th. I think I read that before I lost that imaging. And so just want to know, 2 years ago, we did not submit any comments. They just want to hear if there's been any problems or complaints. As council president, I have not received any, but that doesn't mean other people may have heard about things, and we just weren't aware. I think, Karen, you were going to contact APD to see if there was any formal calls.
I did that. I did that today, Kathy.
Oh, you did?
And no infractions whatsoever in any of their properties, all 6 across the state. They're a good operator, and it's pretty much a non-issue.
Okay, well, thank you so much for doing that, Jonathan. So I think that we can just move on then and not take any action. Does anybody remember the other? I can't believe I misplaced my agenda, but there was one thing that we added at the beginning of the meeting when we moved to.
I mean, while you're thinking or someone's looking, let's keep moving. Let's go on to the land use committee.
Okay, so let's see.
Yep. That's you, John.
Okay. So the first one of the land use committee is the coastal trail turnout at Fish Creek estuary renovation, and that's separate from the Fish Creek Trail. I'm assuming, and Kathy, you might know there's something going on with that.
Yes, so let's see. Let me get caught up on my folders here. So there is something that I found out about through the Anchorage Park Foundation. Nobody contacted our council, but there is a proposed pullout where there is an existing pullout along the coastal trail right at the Fish Creek estuary. It's west of where Fish Creek goes underneath the bridge, the trail bridge, and out into the ocean. And there's a couple of benches, there's some vegetation, some landscaping. There's also signage of all the people who donated money to the Great Land Trust so that it could be purchased, and then they I don't know who they purchased it from. That's not in my brain anymore. But then the muni, then Great Land Trust gave it over to the municipality. So it's part of the estuary parkland area. And they want to redo that. So there's been work. Let's see, we're renovating. This is from the Anchorage Park Foundation. And she says, we're renovating the pullout by Fish Creek in partnership with Great Land Trust in 2026. I know Huddle will take a design to the Turnagain Community Council sometime this spring, but I think she must have meant next spring because we weren't contacted at all this spring from Huddle. So I think this is within our boundaries, and I think we definitely want to be working in collaboration with a working group, Huddle and Great Land Trust and Parks. And I think we want to be an equal player in that discussion rather than we'll come and give you a presentation. So that's one of the things that if it's okay, anybody have any problem with that philosophy moving forward, then I'll contact Huddle and Great Land Trust and Parks and Rec and say, we want to be a part of this. So Sandy, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I would just comment that, the nature of the coastal trails changed pretty dramatically with e-bikes and e-scooters.
Yep.
And so I think it really is important to have time to look at whatever they come up with, because when people come roaring through there at 15, 20 miles an hour, which people do on a regular basis, and then add on to that the Muni can't seem to paint a yellow line down the middle of the trail, suggesting to people that it's a two-way trail. You can just create situations where there'll be crashes. So I'm not necessarily against redoing that, hopefully making it better, but there's just stuff to think about, and I don't think in the past the Muni has been very good about that with trail design and things. I'll leave it at that for the moment.
Okay. Shoot, so I was going to say something and now I've forgotten it. Sorry. Yeah. So thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. Also, now I think of it. So also, and I've not seen again any part of any plans, proposals, anything, but another indigenous marker is also slated to be in that area, installed in that spot. So that even makes it more complex. And so we certainly would want to be, part of that. Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay, then I will take the lead to contact Huddle and XL and ETC and let them know that we want to be part of this effort in terms of input and what things are being planned. Okay, so it's that.
Next is the airport Part 150 study meeting coming up on the 7th.
Oh, thank you.
Is that open to the public?
Yes, in fact, Lex just said that, reiterated that when she broadcast it. Yeah, absolutely. I went to the first one, so they kind of look at me. I was it 10 years ago when they did this Part 150 noise study. They've got the same consultants, out of state consultants. They all came up to me and said, "Good to see you." And I couldn't believe it's been 10 years since I last saw them. So, so I'll be taking the lead on representing Turnagain, but John and anybody else, please attend. Like she said, now they're done with noise monitors that were scattered around in different areas around the airport. So we'll find out at that meeting, what the next step is for that plan.
I'm going to suggest that we extend the meeting to 9:15 and move through as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second. It also looks like, did Janie's get her question asked?
I don't know. I'm sorry. Which
she had written in the chat that her hand was up.
Oh, well, see, I'm not monitoring the chat room,
Yeah.
so my hand's up. Okay, so are you still with us? Is she still on the Zoom?
No.
Oh, she probably gave up on us. Yeah, I need people to kind of monitor for me, please, because I wasn't even looking at the chat room.
Do we have a second to extend the meeting? I forgot if I hear
Yes,
that.
John, I seconded.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sharon.
Sharon. Is there any objection to extending our meeting till 9:15? Okay, no objection. Okay, let's see. So,
it's up on your screen.
A very, very brief Fish Creek Trail update that we just got today. And that is that Noah King, who is the AMATS coordinator type person on the team for that project, indicated that they have assigned a new environmental analyst. And so they will be reviewing the comment response after he incorporates the final notes. We should be hearing something soon. So anyway, just FYI update. We had submitted a lot of comments, a land use committee, questions, concerns, and we were waiting and waiting and waiting for them to respond for several weeks. And now NOAA says they brought on a new environmental analyst. So hopefully we'll get some feedback on our input and likely be trying to schedule a land use committee meeting sometime on that topic. So that's that. That was just an update from today.
Okay. So the next two that Kathy and I have been following, the 2020 comp plan and 2040 land use plan review by PZ and planning and zoning. They've sort of suspended their work for the summer. They'll get back to it. We'll kind of keep people informed of where that's going. And then the second one, I heard from Tom Davis that there may be an update coming on the a task force they were trying to set up to deal with parking and snow management problems. That affects what's going on with Tisdo. So as soon as I hear something from him, I will pass that on to the board.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. Okay, so let's see here. What else?
Let's see, Janie is still here, just says
Oh.
she's impressed with the meeting and participants, so.
Okay, so well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry that you got overlooked when we were discussing the west or the roaming access. Do you have something to share on that topic? Janice, are you there?
Who, me?
No, Janie's Borough Alexander. I'm still here, by the way.
She's muted if she does have something to
Okay,
say.
can you please unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You're muted again.
We did
I
hear
am
you.
not fluent in Zoom so please forgive me. It's going to take me a while to catch up with you all, but I think you all are doing great. I'm here. I'm quiet. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you so much for joining in this meeting this evening. So, okay. So, with regard to FCC delegate, there is a lot to report, but, oh boy. Well, FYI, they're looking at changing bylaws and restructuring how board members versus just members of the delegation. But, we'll be voting on it in October. We'll see it in our September meeting in a couple weeks, and then we'll vote on it in October. So if anybody's interested in that minutia, please let me know. Because right now we're all considered board members, and they want to scale that down. FCC is asking reports from the mayor, school board, assembly instead of at the meeting. Just provide reports, and they're going to try that for a couple months. I already voiced my concern because then you can't ask questions like we've been in the past, like with Christopher Constant as chair of the assembly or a representative from the mayor's office. So we'll see how that goes. The design criteria manual is being updated, chapters 3, 7, and 8. So they are going to attend our meeting in October to give us more information about that. So there's a better public meetings thing going on. FCC has applied for some federal funding, out of state funding, to initiate more ways for community councils, other members of the community, other groups in the community to have better public meetings and collaborate. So that's it in a nutshell with a very busy FCC meeting in August. Let's see. Lineary Park Memorial Garden, real quick. We had a work party, and when I say we, I know we had talked about, inviting TCC residents and members and so forth. I contacted the Parks Department, and she was working with a group where students from East, West, and one other high school that I can't, the one Northeast, Bartlett. And it was minority students, and there were 26 of them that came out on July 1st for 2 hours and did a ton of work down at Lineary Memorial Park, Lineary, Memorial Garden. And so I was the only TCC person there because I felt like that was just, and so Dan and I donated subway cards for all of them but one, because I bought 25 and here a 26th person showed up. They worked hard for 2 hours. They did a lot of trimming with weed whackers and doing things, pruning back some dead branches and so forth. And so it was a really great effort. And then subsequent to that, because they pulled weeds out of the planting bed, the first one, as you go through the arch and you stare at a planting bed that used to be beautiful, but it was full of, all sorts of weeds. So they cleared that all out. And so then Dan and I subsequently bought flowers to plant there, and we've been trying to keep them watered and deadheading and so forth. And we've done more work down there. So we've just kind of tried to tend to that garden as best we can. So that's what we've been doing with some of our summer, is spending some time down at the Memorial Garden and, meeting locals and people from out of state, out of the country, Japan. It's just been really fun to be down there. Okay, long range transportation plan. They're requesting user stories. And Kathleen, you had looked into that, and I'm gonna just read what you emailed me.
Dan's got his hand up.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, I can't follow. So Dan, did you say you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to add to the Lineary Park Memorial Garden. We also took down the fencing around the trees.
Oh, yes.
Which was quite an effort.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Dan. And it was quite an effort. I helped with the netting around it, the fencing, the plastic fencing. Dan took out every one of those poles and stakes, and he did a yeoman's job. And that was with permission from the Parks Department around the 2 trees that still had that.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, he was kind of sore, I think, after that. Okay, so as far as Alaska Long Range Transportation Plan 2025, Kathleen, you had looked into this, and according to a planner on this project, user stories are most useful between now and the end of the year. And so they're just asking for your experiences with roads, and if they're good, they're bad, they're not maintained, they're well maintained. I'm not sure what all they're looking for. They just want a user story. It represents the needs, goals, challenges, and motivations of different groups as they use transportation. So if you want any more information on that, please contact me. Just no update on the CIP project ranking. The PNZ Commission had approved ranking, and then it was forwarded to the assembly, unless I missed something, which is possible during the summer, but I don't think this has still come before the assembly for approval, and we did submit comments on that. Yeah. And as far as the 10-year community council boundaries, which we passed, gosh, it seems like forever ago. Again, that one has gone before PNZ, but the planning department has postponed its work, and it'll be in a few weeks, but I have no timeline on that. Anchorage Trails Plan is being updated. And since I don't have my cheat sheet agenda, I can't tell you exactly what, if there's comment deadline, or I don't see any action. I don't think so. It's just a board report, so I'm following that. And so I know there were 3 items there was 2 items in addition to those 2 that I can't think of, but we approved to add them at the beginning of the agenda. But I don't see that I wrote them down, unfortunately. So I apologize. So, no, I apologize. So anyway, the board has been busy. It's been a busy year so far for our council. I appreciate everybody and your engagement and your support and your participation. And our next meeting is October 2nd. So if you have any questions about something I did cover, didn't cover, made unclear, be sure and contact me. So with that, does anybody else have any final thoughts? I'm not here. If somebody's speaking, I wasn't able to hear.
It's an offline conversation, don't worry.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right. Anybody have anything else until we
Kathy, I heard that next Saturday at Beartooth, David Reamer is going to be giving a talk on the oldest neighborhoods in Anchorage. And I did hear that the Spenard Community Council was going to have a table there before the show, before the talk. Anyway, I'm sorry I don't have the time, but it is next Saturday, I'm pretty sure. And I imagine Turnagain would be part of that.
Okay, I know nothing about this, so we have a table.
It's at 11 o'clock, and you do have to get a ticket, although there's no charge. You have to get tickets ahead of time.
So what would we put on that table? Pat, you could sit at it, and I could sit at it, and if you've lived here longer than how many years? I don't know. We moved here in 82. Is there, besides Pat, who's lived here since previous to, I don't know.
Cottons have. They've been here forever.
Oh yeah, Lamar. Okay. Lamar, you want to head up and man that table?
Where'd I go? Let's see. There we go.
I need more information. Honestly, I have no clue. And I don't know what we would put there. But Pat, you would be a joy to sit at that table and chat with people.
I want to hear his talk. I mean,
I'm guessing it's going to be the neighborhood would be Government Hill, which is the oldest neighborhood in Anchorage.
It's Spenard, Mountain View, Let me think, there was a third or fourth one.
Downtown.
Airport Heights.
Yes, Airport Heights. I think that was one of them.
Really? Government Hill was 1913.
No, it wasn't 1913.
No.
It was after 1915.
Well, the Alaska Engineering Commission put up a series of houses for their managers in 1913, which created
Oh, really?
neighborhood. Yep.
Okay, back to.
Wow.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you.
Do we need a
for
motion to
participating in our
adjourn?
meeting this
Move
evening.
to
So, yes,
adjourn.
can I have a,
Second.
who made the motion to adjourn?
Me, Dan.
Oh, Daniel, of course.
Kathleen Pulaski, second.
Okay, so is anybody opposed to adjourning at 9:09 p.m.? If not, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody. And
Good night.
you. We'll all be in touch.
Stay dry.
Okay, thanks all.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you again, Dan.
Good
Thank
night.
you
Okay.
again.
Good night.
Good night.